And you're welcome back. It's time for us to bring you the final hour, and this time we head to Rivers State as the political landscape in the state continues to simmer under the strain of federal intervention and judicial defiance. Now, a lot is going on in the state, which is what we're going to get into shortly. To begin with, we understand that following President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's declaration of a 6-month state of emergency in the state, Vice Admiral Ibok-Ete Ibas' style of leadership has stirred national controversy. On April 8th, Vice Admiral Ibas appointed 23 local government area administrators, a move that directly contravened an earlier court order barring such appointments. The court has ruled in favor of maintaining the elected local government officials until their tenure expires. Civil society groups, legal bodies, and political actors have since condemned the appointments, citing a blatant disregard for judicial authority and democratic processes.
So Rivers State, in essence, is now at the intersection of federal overreach, some say judicial neglect, and also political turbulence. At the heart of this controversy is whether the emergency rule has now become a vehicle for unaccountable governance. So to help us unpack this and more, we're joined by two very interesting guests. We have Tamunokuro Opusunju. He's Labour Party chairman. You're welcome. Thank you very much. That's from Opobo-Nkoro LGA. Thank you for joining us, Tamunokuro.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
In the studio here with us, we have Liborous Oshoma. He's a legal practitioner and, of course, friend of the house here at New Central. You're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure always. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
I want to start from inside of the studio here with you, Liborous. Let's talk about the sole administrator and his move to put in 23 local government administrators. What did he contravene with the court orders that were put in place from before? What exactly are the details here?
Ab initio, the position of a sole administrator is illegal. And in law, we say you can't place something on nothing and expect it to stand. I have argued that everybody that supports this move, I asked them to show me in section 305 where that section prescribes that the President shall appoint a sole administrator in declaring a state of emergency. I've also looked at subsection 4 of that section and further expanded and explained that with a situation where the governor and the State House of Assembly invite the president, are we saying that the governor can invite the president to come, suspend him from office? And so, like we say in law, you can't put something on nothing and expect it to stand. It will fall like a pack of cards. And so in this case, an illegality cannot bet illegality. And all of this idea of, we knew that this was where they were going ab initio. Elections, the Fubara played himself, out of all of this, played into their hands. So with what had happened now, once you want to declare a state of emergency, you can contrive insecurity or crisis in a state. This was what the political parties were doing when they were decamping. You want to decamp, create, crisis at the local government level, and then you say, there's crisis in my party, and you decamp. But the Supreme Court, in its wisdom, said, no, the crisis that the Constitution envisaged must be such that, it's almost tearing at the heart of your party. And so that puts, a stop to all of those contrived crises. So in the same vein, you find situations now, we're also descending into anarchy, where a president that wants to take over a state by hook or by crook can contrive, crisis, insecurity. We're not even looking at where the places where we have crisis. You just create a crisis. I have said it consistently that the constitutional crisis that there was in Rivers was cured by the Supreme Court judgment. The Supreme Court cured that crisis and, asked the governor to go back and represent the budget, recognize the House of Assembly members. The moment that happened, whether the House of Assembly wanted to say, impeach the governor is immaterial. It is their power to so do by virtue of Section 188. So when you now come and say, we saved the governor anyway, there was people were beating drums of war. Politicians will always beat drums of war. As we speak now, there are people who are beating drums of war for 2027 that is yet to come today. So I would say we declare state of emergency and sack the president because some persons are beating drums of war. The answer is no. So now coming to your question directly, you appoint a sole administrator that is clearly, patently, latently illegal, and then you now expect him to do things that are legal? The answer is no. So it came, have you ever seen the sole administrator visit any sites? Say, oh, this was where this security took place, and so we visited this place to ensure
it was the House of Assembly that was burnt down.
The House of Assembly that was destroyed long ago by Fubara. That's why I say he played himself into their hands.
Mr. Liborous.
And so that was not what orchestrated the crisis. Yeah. Anybody could have built that one. So now, setting up caretaker committees in the proclamation that empowered or that appointed him, that the National Assembly debated upon, where was it stated that he will have power to appoint sole administrators also?
Big question there.
Very
I'm
big
going to let
question.
you finish. But we're going to take a break. And when we come back, Tamunokuro, we're going to be coming to you as a local party leader to give us your take on the issues in River State. But let's go on a very short break for now. And when we come back, the questions continue.
And you're welcome back. We continue with our discussion on River State and its sole administrator as it appoints administrators for the 23 local government areas of the state. Joining us now is Chibike Ikenga, is the APC Publicity Secretary. He joins us live via video chat. Also joining us here in the studio is Liborous Oshoma, legal practitioner and public affairs analyst. But let me come to you, Mr. Chibike Ikenga, to talk about this, all that's happening in River State. The sole administrator was appointed by the president from your party, a president from your party, a move that has been criticized and called illegal, not only by the not only from the NBA, but also from critics as well. Does this reflect the APC's position on respecting court orders and democratic process?
Okay, thank you, Judith. I think we have severally delved into this discussion. Most importantly, there was a reason why state of emergency was declared in River State. You know about the infractions that the Constitution has been going through in River State under the governorship of Governor Fubara and his party. And you know that we also did mention some of those infractions, some of those breaches before it snowballed into a full-blown crisis, instability, and governance was obstructed, and in that process, a state of emergency became inevitable. That is what it is. And then today, the sole administrator has a responsibility. The president and the National Assembly did appoint him, and they gave him responsibilities to perform, to oversee that the state is returned into equilibrium, state is returned into stability. And then you know about governance is very tricky. Governance requires a lot of tact. And then the sole administrator is a state of emergency is a quasi-military administration. And the state administrator is an acting governor. It's a governor to the extent that he superintends the affairs of the state as we speak. And it is important for us to know as well that under a state of emergency, there are certain sections of the Constitution that are suspended. So our people should not expect that it will be the usual governance structure that we have had in a civilian administration or in an elected governance like the immediate past Governor Fubara. So obviously, but rather the suspended governor. So that's the point. Our people must understand that. And then because these sections of the Constitution are suspended, there are certain sections that are suspended. You are aware that the executive has been suspended, elected, the assembly has been suspended, elected. So these are some of the things we will do. So it is important that the administrator appoints people who oversees the relevant sections of the governance, particularly at the local government level. You know, that's a government that is closer to the people, and then they need to be properly taken into consideration in the administration of their affairs under the sole administrator.
Mr. Liborous, let me ask you, you've heard Mr. Ikenga, and there's some comments that he made that you clearly do not agree with. I'm going to ask you you have a right to reply, and then afterwards I will come to Tamuno.
please just, because I want to take some time so that it doesn't look as if Tamuno is just here to listen to us, please.
Okay, let me ask Tamuno then.
And then I would, because I have the whole lot to say.
Then let's do this. Tamuno, first off, let's represent your opinion regarding the situation, state of emergency, the 23 local government administrators that have been applied. Go ahead, Tamuno.
Okay, thank you very much. And then a very big thank you to the Esquire, who is legally inclined, who is with you in the studio. We know, if we will tell ourselves the truth, we know that the sole administrator's appointment in Rivers State is totally wrong, it's totally illegal, and it's totally unheard of, if you would allow me to use that word. You know, a lot of people had shouted and said that past governments, past presidents, people like Obasanjo, people like Goodluck Jonathan, had appointed, had done state of emergencies. But if we also understand, while these state of emergencies were done and a bit of power were being given to the military, the governors were still in office. The suspension section 109, I think, you know, that says that the governor, that there should be a state of emergency, did not include the suspension of the governor. You know, the suspension of governor, a lot of unconstitutional acts have started happening. And if you will allow me, first, the illegal proclamation of the state of emergency, the unlawful appointment of a sole administrator, the defiance of Supreme Court orders. You will remember that there was a Supreme Court ruling that has said monies should not be paid to Rivers State. Tinubu eventually violated all of those. The false claim of the Rivers State House of Assembly, I am in Rivers State. And in fact, I left the house very early because I had a meeting at Hotel Presidential, and that's where I am right now. They came and said that the House of Assembly, part of what Tinubu had said, that the House of Assembly was totally in shambles. Ibok-Ete, a 3-star general, during the time of military rule, it was totally unheard of to hear that a 3-star general is in charge of a state. The best you could do for a state was to put a lieutenant colonel. You know, I'm sure I'm stating the fact. But to bring a 3-star general is like bringing a principal to become a class prefect. You know, the first claim on our assembly, he had gone there. He has seen that the job 100% paid, 80% to be completed. Appointment of local government administrators. That's if I can even start entering, because I've seen that these two lions are here. They may not allow me to talk. So let me just keep talking. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. But we would like you to round up so that we can, yeah.
Okay, appointment of local government. I have and in fact, as I'm talking to you, I'm reading a list of the illegality of the unconstitutional act, first sponsored by the federal through Bola Ahmed Tinubu. If this was Lagos, would he have allowed this to happen? We are seeing what is happening in Plateau, the killings. We are seeing what is happening in Zamfara. As a matter of fact, we know that what happened in Gokana that made him to give that state of emergency speech was all scripted. The people who live in the community said nothing happened. They just took videos, perhaps AI, you know, and then they published it, and then that evening, we heard that the governor was suspended. It did not take up to 2 days. The company that owns that pipeline came out and said that the pipeline is now working, which means, if you would allow me, nothing had happened to the pipeline. Now, we saw the constitution of state boards, which also is, they said, restore peace. They did not tell you to come and play politics. I am in the Labour Party. I am not in the PDP, I am not in the APP, I am in the Labour Party. But whatever is happening in Rivers State affects me and affects you. I am outside the presidential, and because of the fear of who knows if the military will come out, who knows what will happen. Nobody is here at presidential hotel. Everybody is very skeptical. You know, it has distorted our peace. We also heard recently that the NBA that was supposed to have had their conference in Port Harcourt, because of what is happening, they shifted it to Enugu. So it is
all right.
And it is shameful.
Tamunokuro,
As I summarize.
As you summarize, go ahead.
So it is shameful that some people will sit down and be excited that we have an Akwa Ibom man, if you allow me, rule over River State for this 3 months, this 6 months. I did the calculation, and it is 12.5% out of 100% of a 4 years rule. It is appalling.
All right, Tamunokuro. Tamunokuro Opusunju. Tamunokuro, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, please, by the way, it would seem that your visuals, your video is switched off, so we'd like to see who we're talking to. So perhaps maybe you could help us put that on.
All right. Now, let me come back to the studio. 2 comments we're going to take here, sir, and I need you to give a right reply. The first of all, a quasi-military rule. and saying that this was legal and it was necessary because of the anarchy and chaos that have broken on the streets of Port Harcourt, which is, I mean, to say the capital of our oil in the Niger Delta. That's the first. The second is that the NBA have now moved their whole city for the 10th annual conference from Port Harcourt to Enugu, citing the emergency rule as illegal and the suspension of both the deputy and the governor. Your take?
I expected my friend
Chibike
Ikenga to cite the section of the Constitution that is suspended, and then under which section of the Constitution that section itself was suspended. You cannot in one breath blow hot and from the same mouth blow cold. You say you are practicing democracy, but in the same vein you are practicing military rule. It's an aberration. It's an aberration. That is why there is no provision they have been looking for. They have turned the Constitution upside down, looking for where to hide this provision. Now they have come with certain sections are suspended. So what section of the Constitution is suspended? Is there anything in section 305 that says once a state of emergency is declared, the Constitution, a section of the Constitution is suspended? Because if you say you are practicing democracy, constitutional democracy, suspension of a section of the Constitution would mean that you are no more practicing constitutional democracy. And then let's even now come to the Supreme Court judgment. Recently, what led to all of these issues? The Supreme, because this idea of the state governors at their whims and caprices declaring state of emergency at the local government level and then sacking the entire democratically elected local government officials. In Ekiti, it happened and the chairman went to court, but it was just against Ekiti. Kayode Fayemi became governor, and there was a law, the local government administration law, the state local government administration law, empowered the governor to suspend. And then the Supreme Court said, no, that is contrary to Section 7 of the Constitution. And so to that extent, that law was declared null and void. And now, this same government, it wasn't me, it was the Attorney General, who said, look, we no longer want governors to be emperors and be sacking local government chairmen as they like. They went to court and said, the court, please interpret Section 7 of the Constitution. And the court interpreted Section 7 and said, a democratically elected government is under this section guaranteed. That word guarantees that under the Supreme Court's words now, under no circumstance shall a local government administration be suspended or vacated from office. It is their government, not me. And also, the Supreme Court in its wisdom, in curing the madness that there was in Rivers State, said that the presentation of budget to 3 or 4 persons was a joke taken too far. And that also, that without a duly elected local government, that funds should not be released to the said state governor. And everybody, APC, eulogized that judgment. Today, you now have a sole administrator appointed by one man, the president, in concurrence with 109 members of the Senate and 400 and something members of the House of Rep. And then you now say that judgment of the Supreme Court, that judgment, you push it aside. Or if my learned friend also saying, Ikenga also saying that that judgment also has been suspended by declaration of the state of emergency. If that is the case, then we don't need to practice democracy. We can as well just say, look, Mr. President, just become a military ruler. And you know the sad part for me is the fact that these are people who claim to have fought military rule, who said the worst form of democracy is better than the best form of military rule. But today, they are quick to rush to the same military, to use them. You appoint a retired military general. He appoints a serving military general as chief of staff or military officer as chief of staff, and then somebody is saying that constitution is suspended without showing me the section that is suspended.
I can see passion, but I think
this is constitutional abuse. We shouldn't use
just a second,
sentiment to pander it.
I was going to ask you about the other side of this question, the question B, which is the NBA.
That is why NBA has decided that we are not going to be part of this shenanigans.
Just a second, Liborous. But let's come to Mr. Chibike Ikenga here. Mr. Chibike Ikenga, a lot has been said here on this session here today. Now, I'm wondering, now with everything that has been said regarding the alleged orchestration of the events that have led to the sole administrator being put in place in Rivers State, by extension, this is something that's been put in place by the APC party, let's put it that way, since it leads all the way to the presidency. Is your party not worried about the optics that this plays in, well, the general sense of things?
Okay, thank you. Just before I delve into that, let me respond to a couple of things that my dear friend Liborous had said. Liborous, I didn't say that there's a military rule in Rivers State. I said there is a quasi-military rule.
What is the difference?
Quote me properly.
What's the difference?
And then let me also ask you, and the listening public, whether under emergency situations things are usually normal, and then under war situations, under certain challenges, maybe epidemic, and all that, things are usually normal. Let us be realistic. Liborous is becoming legalistic and utopic in his postulations. Let us look at reality on ground. There were serious infractions on the Constitution by the government of Rivers State under Governor Fubara, which was taken to the court. The intimidation of the Rivers State House of Assembly under Right Honorable Master Assembly. The in fact extermination, quote and unquote, of the existence, the extermination of the Rivers State House of Assembly was perpetuated by the government. And this thing went up to the Supreme Court, the Appeals Court. And the decisions, some of those you have reeled out, are they showcasing that the government under review was right and things were right?
No, of course no.
Secondly, you knew also that some miscreants, some criminal elements started threatening the state and the national assets. And then they went further to ensuring that their threats came to reality. And you know that when situations like that arose, the raising the tar of every government is to take necessary actions to protect lives and property. And this was the decisions that led, or these were the actions that led to the imposition of state of emergency. Now it is legal because the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria also guaranteed circumstances that will lead to imposition of state of emergency. Once the president had proclaimed that, and then it goes to the National Assembly, and they secure the approval, it has become legitimate. It has become constitutional, because the Constitution made provisions for its imposition. That taken, let me also let you know, my dear brother, that in such circumstances, when you said I should point to certain sections of the Constitution that have been suspended, you are aware that the governor has been suspended. You are aware that the Rivers State Assembly have been suspended because of their disagreement, because of their inability to work together. Is the executive arm of the government in Rivers State not provided in the Constitution? Is the legislative arm of government not provided in the Constitution? Taking away from that,
Mr. Ikenga,
let me say that
Mr. Ikenga,
NBA is only grandstanding. NBA is only grandstanding.
Now, Mr. Ikenga,
didn't play any role. They didn't make any comment when this crisis broke out in Rivers State. And for my party is doing the right thing to protect.
I hear you, Mr. Ikenga. I hear you, Mr. Ikenga, but just a second, if I can get this one in while I'm recognizing Tamunokuro, we will get to you in just a minute. But Mr. Ikenga, back to the question that I asked, that it seems that the military room seems like a mechanism put in place by the APC. Is your party not worried about the optics?
Wouldn't bother whether people see pictures or people see what they believe. What we want is to protect life and properties and ensure that the lives and properties and the good and services they put them for are protected for them. APC is on the trajectory of ensuring that the proper things are done at the proper time. Irrespective of whose house it's got, the tough decisions must be made. The president made such tough decisions in ensuring the elimination of the fare subsidy. The president has also made this tough decision to ensuring stability in Rivers State by the proclamation of the state of emergency. So as a party, we are well-grounded, we are happy about the way things are done for the good of the larger populace.
Thank you. Let me come to you, Tamuno, and ask this question. And I'm going to say the quiet part out loud. From your final remarks, your closing remarks, you said that, this affects you and the people, plus us as well, this move by the sole administrator, the emergency rule, and all that's happening in Rivers State. So let me ask the quiet part that nobody's going to say out loud. Is this a power grab or a punishment of Rivers State by the federal government? Your take?
I have always said this at every forum that I have the opportunity to speak. The competition has always been between Rivers State and Lagos. The last time I spoke, I said Lagos is Lagos because it had housed the colonial masters. And Rivers State is Rivers because it houses the oil production industry of Nigeria, regardless of Delta, Akwa Ibom, Cross River, Bayelsa, and the rest. Rivers State is the nation's capital for oil. And there's politics in everything we do. Socrates says, he had rather said, we are all political animals. And Rivers' loss, Rivers State's loss is Lagos' gain. Everything is political. Everything is tantamount to reducing our IGR. We had seen what Lagos declared 2 months ago, or I think last month, 250-something billion naira. And then we are here in Rivers State declare 40-something or 20-something billion naira monthly. I think it is totally orchestrated by the national to keep Rivers State, like I said, 12.5% deficit. Because these people that they have appointed, either as a sole administrator, a 3-star general be made a governor by proxy. 3-star general be made a sole administrator, and now we have had LGA sole administrators. What would they do? If not to pay salaries, which is not what the sole administrator can still do. So everything that affects us in Rivers State is tantamount and targeted at reducing, just like we had seen the NBA's release yesterday, that we know how much we lost. We know how much the people who sell food, the hotel owners, we know how much economy has also reduced. In fact, one of the big hotels in Rivers State declared that he has to return 25 million naira, all those who had already booked. And this is the economy of the state. The man who owns the hotel will still pay tax to the state government. And where would he get this money, if not by releasing his rooms? So I think it is targeted, if you ask me. Right. And the Ikenga, as I conclude, Ikenga should also know that he's a factional secretary of the state. We have the Emeka Beke faction of APC, and until that matter is resolved at the Supreme Court level, he's just a factional member who is targeted.
Tamunokuro, thank you very much. Mr. Ikenga, I would ask a question, but I think you already have.
Oh, rather, you're talking to Liborous.
Sorry, Liborous, sorry.
No, I please permit me, because I need to respond to my brother Ikenga.
Please,
there are certain statements he made. I want to, because he asked me directly. He said I should quote him, that is quasi-military and not full military. What we have there, I want to correct him, is full military dictatorship. Because of time, I won't reel out all of the boards that have been sacked.
We will give you time.
Okay, quickly. By the military rule.
Sole administrator.
Military rule.
Sorry, sir. So
military rule. The Rivers State electoral body, the Rivers State Council of Traditional Rulers, the Governing Council of different university, polytechnic and college of education, the Rivers State Board of Revenue, all board and agency of primary health care, primary and post-primary school boards, Rivers State Waste Management Board, Rivers State Microfinance Agency, Greater Port Harcourt Authority, all boards and agencies of different ministries, departments and parastatals of the Rivers State, in addition to the SSG, all commissioners, special advisors, and other political appointees. So when you come and you say you have by one fiat, this is what military governments do. And then you have a serving military officers as chief of staff. What's the difference between a quasi and military rule? And then there are court orders. The High Court says, issued an order for you not to appoint sole administrators, and then you just behave as if you have not even heard about it, and you went ahead. This is military behavior, and you are calling it quasi? Except we're looking for a very fine word for it. And then secondly, what is law? Law regulates the society. We cannot, if we say, let us forget about that. My brother Ikenga said I'm being legalistic. I'm
and
a lawyer.
Utopian in your approach.
I'm a lawyer, and the society is governed by laws. And so the moment we begin to suspend laws and say, no, let us use sentiment, and then we're creating anarchy, we're creating a recipe for anarchy. And then thirdly, you say because the essence of government is security and welfare of the people. The security and welfare of the people is the essence of government. We completely agree. But that is why the Constitution makes provision for the structure of government. And when there is crisis, declaration of a state of emergency is clearly spelled out subsection 1, subsection 2, subsection 3, and subsection 4 of section 305. And what can happen? And when there is crisis, because the president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, not because he can declare. If the governors were in charge of armed forces in their states, you don't need a president to declare state of emergency in an area. But because the president is the commander-in-chief of the Nigerian armed forces, a situation, and then because the governor as chief security officer does not even command the DPO. And so he can't declare a state of emergency and deploy military or deploy soldiers to quell an insurrection or war or to, calm a situation. That is why that power is vested in the president. And in some cases, when the crisis is beyond the governor, he can even call on the president to say, please, declare a state of emergency in this area and deploy the military to do that. And then lastly, on the issue of Fubara suspending constitutional democracy in the state. Yes, we complained seriously. I was one of the most vociferous person. There was no name I did not call Fubara, that he cannot say in his own word, he will sit down by his bureau, who to recognize as member of the House of Assembly or not. That it was unknown to law. That was suspending Section 109. And now the same people that said Fubara couldn't suspend Section 109 have now suspended the entire Constitution in itself and said, no, we have the power to do it by other Section 305. It is blowing hot and cold from the same man. And this thing is critical of Rivers State. Let me take your mind back a little bit. During Goodluck Jonathan's presidency, when, if you remember, Commissioner Mbu was Commissioner of Police in Rivers State. The PDP was in government. His party, the APC, were in opposition. And Mbu said every ballot box snatcher should be shot aside. The PDP supported it and said, yes. The APC said, no, that is contrary to the Constitution. You can't say that. They debated it and fought. 2019, Buhari, APC, said every ballot box snatcher should be shot aside. APC said, yes, that is what should be. PDP said, no, you can't be. Festus Keyamo and Dino Melai were on TV debating it. Yes. And so that it's when it favors them, it is good for Nigeria. When it doesn't, and then lastly, sorry, this one is last. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I must always say this. When Goodluck Jonathan, Obasanjo, I would love to see Obasanjo's statement, hear him now on this, because he started all of these shenanigans, all these problems. In Plateau and in Ekiti. When Tinubu condemned him then. But in Goodluck Jonathan's time, when he was suspended, when the state of emergency was declared in Yobe, Borno, and Adamawa, not even a fly constitutionally elected was suspended. And what was President Tinubu's statement? And that's the statement I will quote now, Rivers, that it was power grabbing, it was state grabbing. And so in the same vein, to answer your question directly, what has happened here now is state grabbing. Okay. What they couldn't get through the ballot, they know they can't get, they are grabbing using the military.
You get to ask a question.
Yes, I do. Thank you for that. I mean, Mr. Ikenga, let me ask you, right, There's so much that's happening here, right? The APC that have been accused of eroding the democratic systems, institutions under the guise of security. They have been accused of eroding checks and balances. They've been accused of being two-faced and also a power grab. So I'm going to rephrase Mazino's question that he asked you the last time, which is APC not worried about the optics in the general populace?
Okay, thank you. Liborous, you mentioned ministries, departments, and agencies crashed by the military administrator. Take note properly that those are departments, ministries, and agencies under the executive arm that is under suspension. So it's nothing different. It's executive arm of the government suspended. So those agencies, ministries, and everything you have mentioned are under it. So it doesn't matter repeating them. Again, let me say that APC was not the one who asked Governor Fubara to suspend the Rivers State House Assembly and to de-recognize them. APC was not the one who asked Governor Fubara to go ahead and continue to run the government without properly presented appropriation bill that became a budget. So for anybody or any group to say that APC has breached the constitution, we didn't ask that the governor and his team should create the crisis that led to some of these challenges we have in Rivers State. All these issues were avoidable. Unfortunately, the governor allowed himself to pander to the whims and caprices of some of the partisan elders and those who have lost elections serially in Rivers State, those who have lost power, those who have even disagreed with the FCT minister, the former governor, his mentor and benefactor. So these are some of the issues. So when you want to put the blame, put them at the proper place. And therefore, NBA was there clearly. When this issue started, NBA was mute. And for NBA to come today to write letter is just mere grandstanding. And then for my friend Liborous, who said that he's a lawyer, lawyers don't make laws. Lawyers do not make laws. If we begin to calculate some of the challenges we have in Rivers State and Nigeria at large, lawyers can count for more than 95% of the crisis we have had in our market.
Mr. Ikenga, just a second, Mr. Ikenga. I have to, Mr. Ikenga, to what end is your support? To what end is the support of the APC government to the emergency rule in Rivers State? If this is a suspension of the governor and at the end of 6 months he is put back, would that be satisfactory to you and your party? Let's start there first. If Sim Fubara is put back as governor of Rivers State, and perhaps maybe he's learned his lesson, in quote, would that be satisfactory?
Yeah, if at the time the sole administrator had properly put back stability in Rivers State, and then the process through which Governor Sim Fubara, now under suspension, was exited, and the process constitutionally is brought back to government, that's what we want. And with the assurances that he will continue to ensure that there is stability, there won't be any problems about that.
When we say stability, it really bothers me. So let me ask a person who is actually local government chairman, right, in one of the local government areas. You are at the grassroots. Was there instability to the point of an emergency rule and the suspension of a governor and his deputy?
Tamunokuro, that's
you.
Perhaps you just want me to talk. You know, would you use a sledgehammer to kill a fly? There was no, what will I say, that I'm emotional right now. There was no cause. In fact, nobody had paraded themselves on the road in form of protest. The only reason that gave Tinubu some sort of leverage to come up that evening by 7 o'clock, you know, and say he had declared a state of emergency was because there had been a stage play of blowing of pipeline at Gokana. Gokana is one of the Ogoni local governments. And like I have said in my opening speech, the people of that community said nothing of such happened. And we only saw videos. And then in the next 2-3 days, the company who owns that pipeline came out to say that nothing happened. So it was shameful. Like I had always told people, that you come to a house, I use the analogy of a house, you're a visitor, you come to a house, the house is well cleaned, there's an AC, air freshener, well arranged, and you come and you're telling the owners of the house that you want to sweep and clean it. It is appalling, it is distasteful, it is shameful, and it should be condemned totally. You know, there was no essence of asking that we should have the state of emergency. Look at Zamfara now, look at Plateau State, look at Borno. Look at what is happening right now with the killings. We are seeing the dead bodies. Everybody has phones to put online. We are seeing, are those ones not enough not morally enough, let me talk like lawyers, to call a state of emergency. But because one pipeline was allegedly blown, they called for a state of emergency. We know that it is the presidential antics to collect Rivers State, just like you have asked Ikenga, who is not responding accurately. It is the presidential antics to collect Rivers State by the back door. We know where this problem started. We have seen video of Wike, where Wike was saying that he was going to deliver Rivers State from top to bottom to the president. But the governor had asked to remain in the PDP. These are some of the fundamental issues, not even about the money. If the governor had wanted to move, he would have moved, because he still calls Wike his Oga. If he wanted to move, he would have moved. But he has chosen to still stay. You had heard Wike when they had said he was sick. He came out to say he was not sick. And then he finally said that he was going to deliver Rivers State.
All right, Tamunokuro, we have to start rounding off, so we'll take that as your closing statement. Thank you very much. I'm going to let Judith, who do you suggest we go to next as we round up?
So as we wrap up this conversation, I'm going to give everyone 30 seconds each to just put in their final closing remarks. And I'll start with you, Liborous. 30 seconds. I know it's hard, but 30 seconds. Go.
My 30 seconds also will I will also refer to his statement raised by Ikenga. That lawyers created the problems of Rivers State. No. Lawyers were on their own. The court was on its own. Rivers State created the problem and employed lawyers who could not, Fubara looked for lawyers who were making money from him, who could not advise him properly. The same way, APC now is gathering lawyers who are not advising them properly and encouraging them on illegality. And that's what led to the crisis in Rivers State. It is lawyers didn't create it. They went
advisory.
Wike today, if he want to be fair to himself, that election, the people who didn't support Fubara for the election are the ones behind him today. Because once there's a new cook in the kitchen, everybody will realign. Right. And so the imposition of Fubara created this crisis. Was it lawyers that created it? No, it was the politicians, people like Ikenga. And then, after creating the problem, lawyers saw it. Lawyers make fortune out of people's misfortune. And so they saw it as an opportunity to feast. They started feasting on it. And so now also, it will be better for them, so that not tomorrow when it decant to PDP, he will not be blaming lawyers again. It is better for them now to pinch themselves and take proper advice, because they are the one creating the problem. Tomorrow they blame lawyers.
All right. Very quickly, Mr. Ikenga, is 6 months going, when the 6 months period comes to an end, are we going to see normalcy in Rivers State, you or APC? You'll take 30 seconds, please.
APC have been on the path of constitutionality in Rivers State. We have not taken to any violent act. It's our opponents, the PDP under Governor Fubara and his team, that have done so. I listened to the young man who is at the studio. They are saying that he didn't see any protest. In Rivers State, those are the News Central saw when we protested against the governor's breaking into the House Assembly quarters, wherein they threatened to demolish it with their families present. You saw how we also protested against the demolition of the Rivers State House Assembly, to mention but a few. These are facts that are verifiable. But to completely say that we are happy in Rivers State, we were very unhappy under Governor Fubara, because he allowed himself to be railroaded into some unconstitutional steps, which led us to where we are. Finally, I'd like to say that we believe, and strongly so, that when the sole administrator had finished his job and the presidency and the National Assembly are confirmed that he has done so, they can bring back the governor to complete his tenure.
And that might mean that 6 months might not be enough. Because when you're saying they're satisfied, would they be satisfied in 6 months? Will they be satisfied in 6 months?
Sorry?
Will they be satisfied in 6 months? Will the Assembly, National Assembly, and the President be satisfied in 6 months?
But that's not my responsibility to say. You ask me, when you ask me whether my party and I will be satisfied in 6 months or more, then I will answer you. You can't ask me whether the presidency and the National Assembly will be satisfied.
It's a follow-up question from your statement. But Mr. Ikenga, we could go on. There's no time. Time on 30 seconds. Your closing remarks, very quickly, because we're pressed for time.
The both of them, both Liborous and Ikenga, they did more than 30 seconds, but I would keep to 30 seconds.
I'm sorry.
6 months is even too much a time for us to have peace. As I'm talking to you now, there is peace. In fact, there is peace and relative peace. But this in Rivers State is absolute peace. Everybody goes about their lawful duties. Nobody is misbehaving. Those who are protesting to have their right. They are protesting to have the governor come back, and they are protesting peacefully. We had protesters on Monday or Tuesday. The police came, threw tear gas at them, shot in the air, shot one at the leg. However, it did not result into more violence. After that had happened, they went back. And Rivers State is still peaceful. All banks, schools, churches, the marketplaces, everybody. So I think 6 months is even too much. In the next 2 months, we should have our governor, because if it were 6 months, we would have said there was war. But there's no war in Rivers State. There are no killings. Nothing really is happening. We just have
All right, then. Tamunokuro Opusunju, we want to say thank you very much. Mr. Liborous Oshoma, thank you very much. And of course, Mr. Chibike Ikenga, thank you very much for an hour of riveting conversation here. Let's continue to see the instance in Rivers State and hope for the best. Thank you, gentlemen.
Hope for the best indeed.